Welcome to the Leadership and Yoga Podcast, hosted by me, Shauna Kruger. And on this podcast, I'll be bringing you interviews with exceptional leaders in the yoga world alongside trainings and tips so you can experience true breakthroughs and help others do the same. When I'm interviewing somebody else, I like to start with a nice grounding moment. And when I'm by myself, I just realized that I never do that, but I love listening back to the interviews in which we do that. So let's take a nice deep breath all together. Good. It feels good to be here. Truthfully, I'm leaving tomorrow for my first official podcasting business trip, which I'm going to share all about later on. Now is not for that. And I'm really excited about it. And I was thinking about this episode for Friday. And part of me was just feeling like I cannot create an episode for Friday. But then I remember that it is in certain people's routines to listen on Fridays. And so here I am. The incense is lit. I just drank my first cup of coffee of the day at like 2:30 p.m. here. I want to speak on this topic of your mission. This is such an interesting one. I'm not going to talk about your purpose, like your life's entire purpose, but I want to talk about your mission and your ability to speak about your mission. Because truthfully, if there is any gift that podcasting has given me, it has definitely been the gift of being able to put into words what it is that I want to bring people, what feeling I want to bring people. And on that topic, if you listened to last week's episode, it was an immersive special episode. It was a musical episode filled with sound effects and all of the good stuff. That was one of the times that I felt the most like the essence of what I was trying to share and to bring out into the world actually came out the way that I was hoping that it would. And that's one of the great parts of being an artist, as not that I have all the experience about being an artist by any means, but that's been one of the things that I've learned along my journey. And even I have these sort of little mastermind groups with other colleagues of mine. And when we talk, and some of us have been meeting for over a year now, when we talk, I always share that what I'm creating isn't coming out the way that I want it to. It's not it's not there yet, it's just constantly like it's not there, it's not there, it's not quite there. It's this constant refining, and they're like, Shauna, no shit. That's part of the artistic process. And I think Rick Rubin said it first, that the work of art is never done until you just take it out of the artist's hands and say, enough, stop that, stop adding more is less sometimes. And so on this journey of refinement, one of the great things that I've learned is about the art of simplifying it, distilling it down, saying it in as few of words as you can possibly say it, and explain it so that a child could understand it, right? And if we can't do that, sometimes I get on my high horse and I'm like, well, my idea is complex, like how could I simplify it down? It is simple, right? And I was telling that actually to my husband Simone. I'm like, my reels and everything I share, it's simplified. I'm simplifying. And then we sat there the other night and we listened to probably 20 of my short form videos that I've created. And at the end of it, I was like, all right, that is not simple at all. I've got a lot of work to do. So I just want to start by prefacing that I'm not coming to you like, I know all the answers and you must follow exactly what I tell you to do. Not at all. However, I've learned a lot about simplifying, and I've also learned a lot about being able to put into words what my mission is. This is one of my favorite compliments that I get from people, and this is one that I get commonly, is that when people really get to know me, so not necessarily as much like from random people on the internet, but when people get to know me, my students, and particularly students of mine that have become dear friends of mine, and then they see more of my life, they see how I live, they see what I focus on, and they tell me that it amazes them how much I know what I want and where I'm going and what I want to work on. It's not really a question to me. There are things that I struggle with being decisive on, but overall, I've really tapped into an evolving sense of purpose, and it's always been that way for me in this world, even though now I'm spending all my time on this podcasting thing and I didn't anticipate that, right? And so when I was thinking about just the example of the podcast and why am I doing all of this? Why am I on episode 172 or whatever it is? That's a lot of hours. That's a lot of work, y'all. And if I wasn't tapped into some greater purpose, I would not be here. Because I am here on my own free will and my own free accord because I believe in the things that I have to share with you and I believe in this journey. And I think that, we get really used to the stories that we tell ourselves. So you might start to tell yourself a particular story about why you're on a mission, right? And the story that I told over and over again was that I had this graduation speech, which I did give in high school, and I was really nervous about it. And the speech was, uh, it was fantastic. I memorized the whole thing, basically to the point that I could not fail so that I would look effortless. I would just be up there like casually like turning the page, but I don't even need to look at the page because I already know. I've rehearsed it 1,000 times. And even at the end of that speech, I wouldn't listen to the speech. I could not bring myself to listen to it. I didn't want to even know anything about the recording of it because I was so afraid that if I listened to it, I would be disappointed in myself and I would be embarrassed and I would feel like I had failed in some great way in my big send off, my last chance, most important day of my life, the last time all these high school people are going to see me and be potentially either impressed by me or think that I'm cringe, right? It's very high stakes, very, very high stakes. I'm actually coming up on when my 10-year anniversary will be. So I will be seeing all those people again, which is hilarious to think about. Like 10 years, what the what the hell? Like that's crazy. But anyways, I eventually did listen to the speech about 6 years later, so maybe about 3 or 4 years ago I listened to it. And I was so impressed by myself, truthfully. That sounds a little like uh, full of myself, but I was really impressed. I was impressed. It was really good. And people were right. They told me it was fantastic and it was. And I thought that I should have a podcast. And that's been the story that I've told over and over and I've told myself many times. Yet, that's not the real mission, you know? And so I encourage you that if you feel like you're fighting for something in particular in your life, or there's some reason that you need to work on something, look deeper and look again. And as I started to look again, and I was like, that's about me, that's not really about what I am doing now. That was something in the past. So what is keeping me here now? Because it sure as hell can't be something that's just about the past. It doesn't work that way. I need a little sip of water. And then I remembered something else. That's what happens when you contemplate things, right? You remember things that you never realized or things that you had forgotten. I remembered that when I was in a job that was not fulfilling to me, on my lunch breaks, when I was working from home, the days that I had the blessing of working from home, honestly, massive blessing, I would fill up the bathtub and I would light candles and I would put anything inspiring around me. I would put like a flower that I had found outside or rocks or whatever. I would put anything around it. I would just create this little like sacred temple. I didn't even know what I was doing or why I was doing that. But then I would get into the water and I would put on various different people who really inspired me. All of them women, more or less, that I felt like I related to in some way. I felt like they were kind of like me, but they were 10 to 100 steps ahead of me in a way. And I would listen to their words and I would just lay there and I realized I was just soaking myself. I just wanted to soak and immerse. I wanted all of the things that they were saying to just seep into my being because I felt a great emptiness. I felt like a ghost in my own life. I felt like I was going through the motions. I had all the things, on paper. Everything was fine, but I was lit up by the things that they said. I was so lit up by the things that they said that I wanted it to just soak into my being. And so what I realized is that it did. It got in there, real deep in there. It's still in there for sure. There are moments that I say things that I know exactly who I heard it from because I listened to certain episodes on repeat because not because it wasn't like Ram Dass sort of things. It was just women speaking about things that made me believe something about myself that I had never really dared to believe before. Because for so long, even though I was very high achieving, right? And that's something that I think a lot of us can relate to today is like high achiever. I'm a high achiever. Yeah, I can do things, right? I can push myself. Great. But that doesn't bring a sense of worthiness. That doesn't ever, I mean, that's a slippery slope and we kind of secretly know it, but we can't stop. But for so long, I had felt like I was innately flawed or just too anxious, too fearful to ever seriously consider some of these things that I was dreaming about as lifelong paths for me. It felt like just completely illogical. It felt like a massive risk, and it felt like that, truthfully, that not that I wasn't good enough, because in a certain way, I believe that, that I can push myself and I can do things, but I didn't think that, I had this upper limit, I guess, on what was possible for me. And I knew that I was really good at checking certain boxes, and the other boxes were boxes that I didn't even dare put on the list because I didn't want to disappoint myself if I didn't reach them, right? That started to dissolve when I started to feel just the magic of being inspired. Do you know what it feels like to just be so inspired? Just so lit up by something that you're listening to, or that you hear, that you just feel motivated. You feel like nothing's changed. You haven't had coffee, you haven't had more sleep, you don't have new opportunities, you don't have more money, you don't have a different environment or different friends or different work, but all of a sudden you feel inspired. And it feels really freaking good to be inspired. And so what I realize is that my mission and the reason why I'm here doing any of this is not so that you will think that I'm cool or whatever. Because truthfully, the people that have most inspired me, yes, I've thought that they are cool, but it's the people whose words set me free, who set something free within me, which is exactly how I started last week's episode. And those were the first words that came to my mind when I think about the people who have most changed my life, are these people who say things and you're like, how did you come up with that? How did you know? How did you really know? Where does that come from? Because that feels really good. That feels like suddenly I don't need to worry about all the little insignificant things anymore because I have inspiration, I have hope, I have a dream, I have a feeling. Yeah. Yeah, and that feeling, it feels really good. I know though what it's like to not have that feeling. I know what it's like to feel like a ghost in my own life, to feel like I'm going through the motions. I have hit a lot of rock bottoms, and to some people, they might seem like the most insignificant things. To other people, they might seem incredibly dramatic, but I've in terms of like the mental health stuff, I've went through it and I don't talk about it in detail and I'm not going to, but I will tell you that there was a lot of times where I wanted people to know how much I was hurting. I wanted it to be physical on the outside of me. I wanted them to see like this pain that I was in because I couldn't even see the pain. I wouldn't sit with it. So if you felt like that, or if you do feel like that, you're not alone. And I'm also here to tell you that I know that it's really annoying to just hear, like, well, just have hope and suck it up and, be present, just relax. Just relax about it. It's not that big of a deal. It's just life, right? Like that kind of stuff. It's just, um, it feels repulsive. I felt allergic to that, essentially. However, I found something that works and it's a feeling. And that's why I'm just obsessed with these words and this message. And I think I've always been obsessed with our ability to communicate to each other. And that's why learning Spanish, I remember one time somebody asked me, like, well, why would you even learn Spanish? You can just Google Translate, right? You can just translate stuff. Like, it doesn't really matter. And to me, that's just obnoxious. That's insane. The amount of moments of feeling and understanding that I've had where previously there was none. I mean, a really clear one is the first time that I went over to Spain after graduating high school to stay with our exchange student. I sat around a table with her parents and with her grandma, and I didn't understand anything. I mean, sort of. I would understand like a word, right? But I'm not capturing the essence of anything. And when I went back 3 years later, after my time in Ecuador and after becoming fluent in Spanish, I got to really meet them and I got to really know them. And it was so funny and weird because I hadn't really physically changed that much. But they told me it's like there's a new, you've been born to us, right? And so ideas can be born to us. We can hear something a dozen times, even in a language that we do understand, and it can still be noise to us. It can be the same as if we're hearing it in another foreign language, but then some reason, some delivery, something about the way that a message is eventually said, it gets in. The little seed of the message gets in. And from there, it's like you're born again, It's sort of a rebirth in a sense. And so for me, that rebirth was seriously believing in myself, not believing in my ability to check boxes, but believing in the fact that all of the things that I'm creating in my reality, that I'm popping into my reality, that I'm reacting to, that are already here, that I can do it. And so I landed on this message, which you might have heard me say before, but your dreams are made for people like you, you know? I remember, and I don't know if you remember this, but imagine in school, in high school, to use another example of high school, where in the lunchroom, we had different tables. And there were certain tables where I could tell at first glance by who was sitting there and by where the table was located that I was not going to sit there. That was the popular kids' table. How awkward, how weird, how out of place would it have been for me to just waltz on over there and sit down and be like, hey guys, what's up? Right? Oh, I totally could have. I probably would have then joined the friend circle if I wanted to, but I didn't because I didn't believe that that table was for people like me. I didn't see myself as one of them. And I'm not suggesting here that we should aspire to be one of the popular ones, right? But this whole mission of even doing the podcast and working in all of this stuff is that so often we see a certain type of person or a certain person who we think checks different boxes, older, wiser, younger, prettier, smarter, has more time on their hands, has more freedom, has more bleh. That dream is for people like them. That's for those people, not for people like me. And then you kind of excuse yourself away. Like, I don't really need to contemplate that seriously, right? Because if I did, I would be crazy. So I might as well just save myself from feeling like I'm crazy and just ignore that and push it down. But then what happens, of course, when you push it down is that you end up using a lot of your life force energy to hold yourself back. And that doesn't feel good. This is the great tension that I spoke about in the last episode. I spoke about this feeling that when you're only basically holding yourself back from growing, from putting yourself out there for fear of failure, for laziness, for not wanting to spend the time to figure out how to actually do something that'll feel good to you. There's a tension that we get. And I believe so much of the pain in our bodies is actually this tension. This tension may not be because you're not posting on Instagram. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm more of saying, like, when we don't process things, like everything that's happening to us, if we don't process it, we don't write about it, we don't speak about it, we don't create about it, where does it go? Can it go anywhere on its own? Does it just like, is it just there one day and then one day it just packs up its bags and it's like, you know what? I think I'll take my baggage and I'm gonna go now. Like, I think you've had enough. I don't know. It's maybe has not been my case for many things. A lot of things need to be sort of milled and need to be ground up and processed, and creation is not just like painting a thing. It could also be going out on a hike and singing as you go, or whatever. You will figure that out once you ask yourself, okay, what do I want to do with this? What are my dreams? What are the things that actually I secretly long for, that I don't even want to long for because I don't want to be disappointed? What are those things? Because the more that we compromise and we just consistently say, like, well, I can't do that, so I guess I'll do this other thing. I would much rather try to do the thing that I actually wanted. If it doesn't work out, figure out a way to enjoy the process so that it doesn't matter about if it works out or not, you know? I wrote about this feeling of tension as vines. This idea came to me of these vines of tension, just like the fibers within our muscles. And I pictured what it feels like when I hold my phone and I'm just consuming what other people are doing, and I'm feeling like I'm not one of them. Like, why am I not one of them? Why don't I have what they have? Why don't I get what they're getting? And I feel like these vines just coming in through my phone and up my arms and over my head and heart and covering my head and heart until they feel like they have a heart of their own. That's where that line came from last week. And you know what the craziest and creepiest thing is? That I wrote that in the nighttime. And the next day, when I woke up over breakfast, Simone was telling me, he's like, I had a creepy dream. I had kind of a nightmare, and I don't want to freak you out with it, but I dreamed that you were standing by the door and you were holding a cup of water, and a bit of the water got on your hands and on your arms, and vines started to grow out of them. And I was like, no shit, right? That's wild. That's exactly what I was just writing about. Like, you're tapped in. You're channeling whatever whatever the energy is that's going on inside of me. And that kind of stuff doesn't happen very often, right? But that's yeah, one example of like when I feel like I was actually able to write a truth because I was, taking the time to think about it. And so I'm I'm here, doing all of this podcasting and that, not because I'm trying to prove a point to myself or to you about what I'm capable of. It's really never been about that. It's not really about me. It's about the fact that if I can, I feel like maybe you will think that you can too. Not that you need to be a podcaster, but I hope that, I don't want you to feel like a ghost in your own life, because you're not a ghost. You're not a ghost. And no matter what's going on, I mean, I do not have all the answers. I do not have it all together. I do not have a lot of money. I do not have a lot of the things. It may look like I am completely stuck. There are many people who could look at my life and what I'm doing with my life at this time and be like, I would not want to be there, right? But at the same time, the understanding that I've gained over my reality and everything that's going on in life and how I am living, in that, I have everything that I've ever wanted. I have everything that I've ever wanted already. It does not matter to me if, you know, There's something on the dream board that I have over there that I don't have, because the joy of everything that's going on and understanding how I'm playing this human game, I guess you could say, it's all a gift. It is literally all a gift, and none of it is to be expected, and none of it was to be expected. And I know that sounds like a really radical, and I'm kind of getting a little bit like preachy here. A little bit preachy. So I will move on to your creation of your own mission and your own message here. But I just want to end with saying that. I want you to start by thinking of an example of a time that you had an intention, you had a mission, you had a purpose, and then something happened as a result of that, as if by magic. Maybe it was that exactly the person you were thinking of reached out to you first before you reached out to them, or you found a friend in an unexpected place, or you received something, or what you needed most came from a place that you least expected it. But think about this concept of, when have you had even kind of like a silly mission, even something that you'd say is, well, that's not that significant, right? Or that's not my life's mission. It doesn't matter. Just think about a time that you were on a mission. And while you're thinking about that, I'm going to tell you two examples so that it can start to spark your memory a little bit. I was on a mission that is not at all my mission, but one of the studios I teach at here in Austin right now, they gave me a bunch of these free class cards, and I want to help to bring new students into the studio. So I said, I am going to just hand these out to people that I interact with. And there's a cafe that I go to very frequently. And I had this stack of these free class cards, and I was so actually genuinely excited because this is a real free class. It's not like a scam or anything. I mean, you can use it anytime. And these were people that I talked to a lot, and we're not coworkers, but sometimes I feel like almost we're coworkers because I spend so much time in there having coffee and, doing all of my things and working from there. Sometimes I work there from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. straight up. Straight up, because I have a difficulty working at home too much. It weirds me out. Anyways, that's beside the point. But I came in there on this mission. I was really excited. I was like in my giving energy, right? I was like, I can't wait to surprise and delight these people with these free classes. I have like 8 of them, everybody, even the people in the kitchen can go to a free class, and it's right down the street. Like, how cool is that? And before I get to the counter, the free class cards are tucked away in my purse, and I order my oat milk latte hot for here, in a for here mug, of course, because vibes and also the environment. And I was about to take out my credit card to pay. And as I was about to do that, the girl goes, "Oh, don't worry. It's on us today. You know, like, we got you. You're here all the time. We want to treat you." And they've never done that before. Over several months. Not that I'm saying like, well, they've never treated me before. I was not expecting it at all in that moment. And I said, "You're not going to believe this, but that's so funny because today was the day that I was going to treat you guys to something free. So here are these free class cards." And it was such a simple, like funny little exchange, but I could tell we were both super lit up by this, because it's like, it's just that, not that we should be looking for proof when we give things to people, but again and again, we're kind of reminded how giving energy and just giving, and treating other people is a treat itself. And often it's returned in some way, shape, or form. And even if it's not, I think that we underestimate how much joy comes in giving, and if somebody wants to treat you to something, let them treat you, because they're probably really excited about it, and it's probably going to make them feel really good to do that. And then just turn around and treat somebody else. It doesn't matter if they never know that you did that, or if the account at the end of the day is not equal between you two. It's not about that, right? The second example that I'm going to give you is about this idea of immersing yourself entirely in a reality. And this is kind of a weird one, so hang with me, but it's going to be kind of an analogy that I want you to understand. I was watching the White Lotus most recent season, and that was a nice voice crack there. And I was so immersed in this episode, or this whole season. I was kind of just like binging it straight through because it was in a time that I was feeling like super low energy and I just wanted to chill around the house one weekend. I was super into the show. Like I felt like I don't watch too many shows for this reason because sometimes it's like too much for my mind. Like I'll dream about it. I'll have, if it's a scary thing, like I will inevitably have a nightmare about it and stuff like that. But with this one, it was too late. I was already invested and I was like, this is super creepy. And I know that I'm going to dream about this, but it's too late. Like now I'm interested. And so I watched this whole entire season. And then the next day, after we finished the whole season, over the course of the weekend, we go to the airport and we're walking up to this lounge, and there's the one normal lounge, and then there's like the flagship lounge. And Simone and I are talking. We're like, oh, won't it be nice one day when we can go to the flagship lounge? Like, that just sounds super nice. And we walk up and we give the guy our boarding pass and this and that. And we're like, well, at least we get to go to this lounge. That's great. And he goes, oh, you're actually eligible today for the flagship lounge. And we're like, oh, wow, that's great, That's so fun. And we were just super hyped and going in there, and we're talking about the show and how just like luxury travel and all this kind of stuff. And as we're not that we were like luxury traveling, but in that moment we're like, look at us living our best luxury life, abundance is coming to us. And we're sitting there, and Simone looks over and he's like, is that the guy from White Lotus? Is that the character named Valentine, who's the yoga teacher, by the way, in the show? And I look over at him and I was like, oh my God, I think it is. Like, I think that's actually him. And we go over and I walk up to him. I was the one who did it. I was like, are you Valentine from the White Lotus? And we talked to him for a while and he was like, yes, I am. And we asked him all about how it was filming the show, and we told him, we're like, we just binged this entire thing, and so we feel like we're still inside of the show, and now here you are, like in our reality, popped into our reality. Trippy. I mean, you could say it's a coincidence, sure, but I'm just getting at that aspect of like when you focus in so much on something, you're gonna see it in different areas of your life. So in this longer story analogy, it doesn't need to be something so mysterious as that. It can just be anything that you've started to focus on at one point, and then it somehow showed up more in your life. It somehow started to come in there. And the reason why I'm saying this is to give you a purpose and a why behind being on a mission. And by why getting clear on your mission is really helpful, because it sets the parameters, it sets your focus. And a really key point I want to make here is that it's not about achieving the mission in some future setting. It's about the question. It's about the idea. And in the question, there is already the mission. In the question, elbow crack for explanation. In the question, there is already a mission. It doesn't need to be about the final product or getting to the final product or the finished product that you're going to create or whatever it is that you think that you're going to do, because it's probably going to evolve by the time that you get there, wherever there is. I don't know where there is. If you know where there is, let me know. DM me or something, because, I need to be in on the know how I can get there. I would really like to know that. But in this initial question that you're asking, or in this direction of, like, in my case, how can I show other people that their dreams are made for people like them? I can't grab you by the neck and be like, your dreams are made for people like you. There, now you know it, done. Next. Who else wants to be, who wants to take the red pill, right? No, no, no. Your mission is going to move mountains. It already is moving mountains because you're putting your power and your energy behind it. And where focus goes, energy flows. It's powerful stuff. I mean, I think that we understand at this point that we are living in the magic realm and that we do not really understand the full capacity and the nature of consciousness. I mean, if you think about it, your consciousness is a crazy thing that you've got. It can time travel, it can go forward, it can go backwards, it can go anywhere in the universe. Think about when you've seen one of those photos of the Milky Way or far away galaxies or stars and things like that, and you can just close your eyes and you can go there in your mind, at least. You're not your physical body, but that's the point, right? You've got some power going on here. And what you put that power behind is it's going to make or break your human experience. That is for sure. If you argue for your limitations and for reasons why that's not true and why you're actually not that powerful, you're going to get to keep all of those limitations. But if you argue for the things that you want to experience, if you have a mission and you say it again and again and you share it with people, you're going to experience that mission. It's already going to be here in some way, shape, or form. You could get off of this podcast and look and see that you have a text from somebody who is asking you something related to what you've just thought about. I mean, that's kind of stuff happens all the time. So why would we not just lean into that is part of the experience? And that's not oddities. That's not the rare things. That's almost to be expected in some way. So I'm going to leave you with one tangible tool that has really helped me. That sounds so cheesy. A tangible tool to find your mission statement. Sounds super corporate-y. I feel like this is such a sassy episode. I'm like sassing myself here. But it feels kind of good for some reason. So we're just gonna roll with it. But the tool was actually something that was shared with me by one of my coaches, that like a life and business coach that I hired, who's also now a dear friend of mine. But he calls it the iOS. It's the individual operating system. And basically what it is to create anywhere you want to. It could be in the physical form. It can be on your phone. I created mine on Notion, and maybe I'll link a sample in the show notes. Yeah, I can do that. I'll link a sample. You can get a little sneak peek preview of the iOS if you want to. But basically, it's everything that feels relevant to you. And this is like to avoid, when you hear something and you're like, oh, I love that, and that really speaks to me and that really resonates. I think I'd like to do something about that, or I'd like to remember that at least. It's a place to put all that stuff. Or like a photo that you take of yourself that you feel like, wow, that is the final form. Like that's the higher me. The light is just making me look like an angel. I don't know. All of that kind of stuff needs to go somewhere in a place that's accessible to you. Maybe it's just a giant list in a notebook or something like that doesn't have also a bunch of other stuff in there. So it's something quick glance. And this has helped me a lot narrow down. And I'm constantly removing things and adding things. And then things that I added, I end up thinking like, no, that's definitely not it. Like that's off. That is not part of the mission. Get out of the car. But having some way that you can start to look at and map out your mission is going to be so helpful. And I know that that's not specific at all. You might be like, what mission? My life's purpose? Just something that feels exciting to you right now. You know how far you can get by following the things that feel exciting to you, the things that feel like they're giving you energy? You can go following something until it feels like there's no more energy there for you. And then from that place, because you're now you've gone down a different path, you can look and say, well, what would be the next thing that would bring me more energy? And you can go that way. And that is kind of what I'm getting at with this whole mission thing. So have it clear, at least to you, the things that are lighting you up, the things that you might like to put out into the world, the things that you might like to experience also for yourself in this world. What are those things? What do they look like? And at first, it might stay super open and broad. You might be like, I've never done such a thing in my life. What a concept, maybe I'll try that. You might say, I've done 100 things like that in my life. Boring, what do I do next? If you have done things like that before, great. So that's kind of like step 1, right? Step 2, look at it over and over again. Do it over and over again. Say it over and over again in different forms until you distill it down and you get it super simplified. And the only way that you're ever going to do that is by not sitting there rewriting the thing over and over. It's by sharing it with people or putting it places and looking at what happens as a result of that, learning from that and coming back. And that's why I think for me, for a while, I was really kind of concerned. I'm like, man, am I wasting my time here with this social media thing? And then I realized I'm refining my art. Holy shit, I'm refining my art. I'm refining mi arte. This is not a waste of my time. This is the greatest blessing that I could ever have been given. What a tool, what a resource that I can share things out and then figure out what people are understanding, what excites people, and what format I can best say my message. Because I said it in the last episode, and I'll say it again, that if we really care, if we really care about our mission, we would do that. We would sit down even when it's not fun and we would refine it again. We wouldn't just throw it out there and be like, whew, off my plate, out of sight, out of mind. Check, what's next? No, doesn't work like that. Doesn't work like that. So I feel like this episode has been kind of like the more tangible talk through of the meaning behind the episode that I created last week. So I hope that that has been helpful to you, whether you are a yoga teacher, whether you are an aspiring creator, whether you are just a human who is looking for inspiration. You deserve it. You deserve that inspiration. And I hope that this episode has been able to bring at least a little bit of that to you, because I know that if you are listening still at this point in the episode, there is some part of you that knows that all of these concepts about magic and all of these concepts about inspiration and what's possible for you, that miracles are inevitable, that magic is really everywhere in this human experience, and it's really not about being anything or waiting until something happens or changing yourself. It's just about reconnecting with it. There's some part of you that knows that at a certain point you did believe and you did think that way, whether that was when you were a child or whether that was in a moment of glory that you've had at some point in your life. You remember what that feels like. It's in there. And that's a really good news, because we sometimes feel like the fire is out, the sparks are gone, but you dig in the ashes and you will find an ember. You will fan that ember and you will turn it all the way back into a fire, and then you will go throwing fire. All right, I'm going to end this before I sound like I'm saying something scary, but you will go allowing other people to ignite sparks again within themselves, because they will see it in you and they will begin to believe, because they can see it in you. They will be able to see it in themselves also. And before I tell you what the emoji of today will be, I also want to let you know that I've got a couple of requests for you The only support really that I'm asking for at this point with this podcast is to please subscribe to my show if you have not done so. I know it's really annoying that I keep asking, but please do that. And also to share this episode with another friend. You can just send it to them directly. You can post it on Instagram. Anything like that is just the most value and the most help that you can give me, truly. I mean, it's incredibly valuable. And so that's great energy, great karma that I'm sending to you. You can also drop me a rating on whatever platform that you listen to. And I also have an upcoming retreat in Costa Rica, which is January 25th through 29th. So if you are feeling really inspired by these episodes and you're feeling lit up and you want to meet like-minded listeners and other students of mine to practice yoga with me in person, to sit and to talk through all of these things as a group, check out the link for my upcoming retreat. It's in the show notes as well. And the final thing that I will say is that if you ever wanted to hold a physical piece of something that I have created, I have made a ritual of writing journal with one of my best friends, and it's a physical journal. I'm going to grab my copy here. It's right by my bed because I write in it almost every night. It's got my pen in it and all. Let me hold it up here so you can see it. Ritual of writing looks like this. And it has long form pieces of writing that we have written. It also has plenty of blank space for you to journal in and a couple guided prompts as well. There's a discount code. I think it's POD33. I'll write it in there, but that'll get you this for $33 if you would like one of those. Okay, the emoji of the day is going to be the fire emoji because I was thinking about the fire and spreading the fire, spreading the spark to everybody. Okay, I think that's all. Happy Friday if you're listening on Friday, new episode Friday. I think it's been 110 Fridays now that I've brought you new episodes. That's crazy. Anyways, I'm sending you all my love, and yeah, I believe in you. Thanks for being here. I'll catch you in the next episode. Ciao, ciao. If you enjoyed this episode of the Leadership in Yoga podcast, please take a moment to drop me a rating and subscribe. Also, if you're able to share this podcast with the world, it is greatly appreciated. Thank you.